Every now and then, the internet coughs up a story that is so bizarre, it makes you question your reality. It makes you question how you got here watching a video about it in the first place. And it might even leave you questioning humanity. For the next several minutes, you'll be hearing one of those stories. So grab a seat, get comfortable, and come with me as I tell you the story of a VTuber whose public persona and aesthetic drew from Nazi imagery, and how that persona crumbled into ashes after they were exposed, doxed, and then turned on by their own fans. Now, before we start, I want to clarify a definition and tell you where I got the bulk of this information from. Firstly, the word I want to define is VTuber, because there might be a few people watching this that don't know what a VTuber is. Simply put, a VTuber is a content creator that uses motion caption software to make themselves look like an anime character. As for citing my source, the bulk of the information that I have for this video all comes from a Kiwi Farms thread. With that said, I hope you're all ready. Let me open up this Pandora's box and show you what's inside. This story well and truly begins in July 2025, when it was announced on Twitter that a hot new VTuber group had assembled. A VTuber group whose name I'm going to have to apologize for in advance. But for me to tell this story properly, I'm going to have to name them. This group was called the V-Tards. The V-Tards were comprised of 5 founding members: Akemi Kurai, Shir Owan, Kitsura Nines, Wendigogo, and last but certainly not least, Nachisu Miku, described in her Twitter bio as your adorable redhead angel with a heart overflowing with love, VTuber Kitchen Fura. Now, hearing Kitchen Fura might be sending off alarm bells in your head, but trust me, it gets worse. If we have any ultra weebs in the audience, they might be a little bit ahead of the curve, because anyone that speaks Japanese fluently might know that Nachisu translates in English to Nazi. On a real note guys, for this video to be monetized would be an absolute miracle. I put the chances at slim to none. I've already accepted that I'm basically going to work this week for free. So I'd just like to say this once, and I'd like to get it out of the way now. If at any point you find yourself enjoying this video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'd also really recommend you to check out my other content if you enjoy this. That's the only way I'm going to get paid for this video, in all likelihood. With that said, you now know the first of many different twists in the tale that this story will have. That we're discussing a fascist VTuber. So I think that right now would be the best time for me to give you some information about Nachisu Miku so you can really understand who she was and what she stood for before we delve into what happened to her. So as you might be able to expect, this VTuber was said to hold various alt-right beliefs. She said that she agreed with Nazis on basically everything except for killing people. Nachisu Miku would commonly say slurs on Twitter and on stream, specifically the N-word, but also basically any other slur that you can imagine. Nachisu Miku was also known to be an avid Nick Fuentes fan, and I'm going to be very careful in what I say here because I'm really not clued up in the Nick Fuentes lore. I know that his fans are very passionate, and I don't really want to say anything that might be a bit ill-informed about him. I will say though that she used to have this acronym on her Twitter bio, RKD for NJF, which apparently stands for Rape, Kill, Die for Nick J. Fuentes. And she would frequently praise the name of Mr. Fuentes on Twitter and on her streams.
That's funny, that's based. See, that's what I like about Nick Fuentes is he calls his super chatters retards when they're retards, you know. I agree with that. And I think that is like a trope or something, which is like, chat is retarded.
So very clearly, she is a controversial personality for outsiders. But then something very interesting began happening. Eyebrows from within her own community started being raised. And one of the main reasons why that I could find was an interview with a YouTuber called Godfast. He's a small creator with roughly 400 subscribers. This was a defining moment in the shortly lived career of Nachisu Miku. Take a close listen to this interaction.
Fash front ass, have you read My Struggle? You know what that means, or any other NS literature?
I have not. I know what it means, but no, I haven't read that.
You haven't read My Struggle?
I should.
And you're like this. You're like the biggest like like the most far right extremist Miku, and you haven't read it?
I'm sure I've seen excerpts from it, but no, I've never read the whole thing.
Jeez, okay.
What Godfast was asking here was whether or not Nachisu Miku had read Mein Kampf, the book written by Adolf Hitler when he was in prison in the early 1920s. That book is translated in English to My Struggle. If you're not aware, this book is the most famous piece of Nazi literature ever published, and it's the one resource that gave us the clearest insight into Hitler's mind. So for Nachisu Miku not to have read it, for her to appear as though she might not have even known what it was, something didn't add up. People became even more suspicious when they found out that Nachisu was using a voice modifier, something that she was, in fairness, quite transparent in making public.
No, hey, but why the voice changer? Why do you think, man? I've said this a few times, and it's not a voice changer, it's a voice modifier. So it doesn't sound that different from my voice, but do you know how many death threats I'm getting right now? People want to straight up kill me. That's why. It's to prevent doxing. But yes, I do use a voice changer, and it's to protect myself.
Now, any content creator that chooses to use a voice modifier is only naturally going to have questions over why they choose to use it. And to be fair to her, in Nachisu Miku's case, I feel like the answer is quite obvious, that she doesn't want anyone to know her real identity. But this increased curiosity in the real story behind Nachisu Miku led online sleuths to snoop around. And a simple Minecraft username lit a spark that then grew into a blazing inferno. To make sure this next part is accurate, I'm going to read directly from the Kiwi Farms thread. Nachisu decided to reuse an old Minecraft account for her new VTuber persona, the same account that she has been using for over a decade. Searching for past nicknames on the account reveals that Nachisu previously went by the alias Exterior K. And by googling this username, people discovered an utterly shocking revelation. They discovered something that would send shockwaves right through the heart of the SS VTuber world. They discovered that Nachisu Miku was actually a man. This was the person behind the mask, a man known as Kenneth. And I'm going to use his name here because it's already out of the bag. Kenneth's identity was revealed, and thus began an intense investigation into the man behind Nachisu Miku. An investigation that revealed many utterly shocking details about one of the internet's most quickly downfallen creators. An investigation that I'm going to share with you now. With his name and username out there, people were very quick to Google the living shit out of him.
What did they find?
Everything.
They discovered that he lived quite an interesting life. Amongst being a male, Kenneth was a software engineer, a DJ, and a Minecraft fan. In fact, more than a decade ago, he had made a Minecraft Let's Play YouTube channel with one of his friends. This channel might have been lost to the archives of YouTube if not for this recent discovery. Many people thought it was interesting that this was the man that was responsible for Nachisu Miku, the quote-unquote mastermind behind it all. Of course, then his SoundCloud was leaked, as well as websites that he had worked on. I haven't been able to recover his websites, I think that he's taken them down, and his SoundCloud has been wiped. According to the Kiwi Farms post, he used his SoundCloud account to make AI songs about Nick Fuentes. That said, according to the post, he doesn't actually like Nick Fuentes. Last year, he publicly stated that he wasn't a groiper. Long story short, that is a fan of Nick Fuentes. As I said, I'm not really going to get into the Nick Fuentes aspect because I'm less than qualified to talk about it. What I did find interesting though was the next discovery made, and that discovery was a warrant for Kenneth's arrest. As it turns out, he had participated in January 6th, and he was caught in several images participating in the Capitol's invasion. In fact, this is apparently an image of him next to the QAnon shaman. Furthermore, he made several posts to Facebook documenting the event. Kenneth took a plea deal and pled guilty to parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building. He was sentenced to 80 months of probation and was ordered to pay restitution of $500. He was eventually pardoned for the activity in January 2025. So Kenneth's entire life was now public information on the internet. It was time for him to try and scramble and make some moves to survive this onslaught. But as you'll soon see, this might have made things even worse. First things first, Kenneth tried to pull the oldest trick in the book. If you're like me, when you were a teenager, you might have asked a girl out over text and then got rejected. So what you would do is say, oh, it wasn't me, my brother took my phone, and hope that they buy it. No, it wasn't my finest moment, and neither was it Kenneth's, because he initially tried to keep up the ruse to still be seen as female, and say that Kenneth was actually his brother that let Nachisu Miku use his Minecraft account, so the person who's actually being doxxed was Nachisu Miku's brother. However, Kiwi Farms decided to do a bit more digging and discovered that Kenneth had no sisters, only brothers, so he had been caught in yet another lie. And then one more revelation was made that would turn this entire situation up on its head. An allegation was put onto Kiwi Farms that accused Kenneth's late grandfather of being Jewish. So the allegation is, right now, that a male Jew who was there on January 6th decided to go online and used a voice changer to pose as a female Nazi VTuber. That has to be the first time that sentence has ever been uttered on this earth. And God, I hope it's the last. Back on topic, Nachisu Miku would eventually come clean on his Discord, revealing that he had lied about his gender and that he was sorry. He then went on Twitter and relayed the same information, calling himself an actor. Obviously, there's a degree of separation between VTubers, who are technically characters, and the people behind them. He also tried to make the point that women voice men all the time. Quite notoriously, all of the kids on The Simpsons are voiced by women, as are characters such as Ash Ketchum and Timmy Turner, and everyone's favourite bold 5-year-old, Caillou. Of course, as all of this was happening, a lot of extra rumours were being made. Some people were saying that the man behind Nachisu Miku was gay or transgender. Obviously, the Jewish allegations were still active. Kenneth, though, denied all of these. However, he would come out on stream and reveal his real voice.
This is my real voice.
So now I'm using my real voice. This is me, the man behind Nachisu Miku.
The downfall was well and truly happening. As of the time I wrote this video, the Kiwi Farms thread on it was, I believe, about 80 pages long, and through that thread, I learned that the V-Tards are no more. Kitsura9s has now vanished from the internet. Shit Owen left the group less than a week after it was initially formed. And as for Nachisu Miku, as you might be able to guess, he is a dead VTuber walking. Nachisu Miku's Twitter was taken down the first time I looked it up, and it seemed as though his Rumble was also inactive. He eventually made a return to Twitter, clarifying that Nachisu Miku was a character, and the views expressed by her weren't necessarily shared by the male voice actor that was behind her. She would also state that she's looking to reboot, and that people can trust her now because there's literally nothing left to hide. Many people were quite quick to be anti-Semitic and to call Nachisu a liar. So that leads us to today. Nachisu has been exposed as a potentially Jewish man, and I don't think I need to tell you why that might be a problem for former fans of Nachisu's. The question is, will she be able to make a comeback? Right now, based on the replies that Nachisu has been receiving, it seems like an uphill battle. Okay, so this is where our video takes yet another turn. Upon seeing that Nachisu's Twitter was back online and that Kenneth was tweeting again, I knew that I could get a new dimension to this if I could get Kenneth to speak to me in a video call. For the majority of the remainder of this video, I've included the highlights of our discussion. I want to clarify right now that allowing Kenneth to speak on this channel does not mean that I endorse his views. I do not whatsoever. This interview is being included for the sake of journalism and with the intention of getting the full story from the only first-hand source. These were the highlights of the interview. So I have been joined today by Nachisu Miku, the very controversial SS VTuber. Am I saying that right? Would you describe yourself as that?
Yeah, that's accurate, yeah.
Okay, would you be able to give me a quick rundown of everything that happened, how it started, where the conflict lay, and where you are right now?
Yeah, it basically started as I just wanted like an alternate account to kind of, post and stuff and just have fun with. I had the idea of using an anime profile picture just to be anonymous, and eventually I started generating AI images of the character and started thinking about, if it was something that could like develop into like an actual character story type thing, maybe kind of like a comic book or something. I don't know, I always kind of viewed it as like I was writing a book, creating a character, kind of in real time.
Behind the scenes, do you wish to discuss your political allegiances? Are you a Nazi behind the screen?
I don't know if we nowadays know exactly what a Nazi is. The Nazi party doesn't really exist anymore. So would I say like I'm technically a like true Nazi? Not quite. I mean, I would say I hold right-leaning opinions that are maybe towards the far right, towards the National Socialist ideologies.
Okay. What do you think, because obviously you were saying that you might change the character up. In your opinion, what's, outside of your gender, what is the biggest difference between yourself and Miku?
It really is mostly the gender thing.
So there are similarities,
I think
there are crossovers.
Politically it's virtually the same. I mean, the person I was before it is essentially the same person. There really is not much difference. And that's where I think I understand where people say, oh, the lines are blurred, and they totally are. I mean, between me and the character.
What was the intention behind making your VTuber avatar female and using a voice modifier? Why did you do that?
Yeah, like I said, it started with just creating this character. I didn't quite have the intention of going into VTubing, so it just kind of kept going to that natural conclusion, more or less. I had tried stuff with a male VTuber model, and it just didn't quite feel the same. Like, I thought Nachisu Miku was a little more fun. I did conceal the fact that I was male for a while, and, I do kind of regret not telling. I mean, I do definitely regret not telling people up front about that. That's something I learned, as I've been doing this, is I should have told people about who was actually behind the character, because that's also how I think, going into like how people view VTubers differently, is that I view it more as like a character, something separate from myself, like something that I can, play and act on. I'm not transgender, this Miku isn't supposed to be like my exact persona in a cartoon form. I kind of have the understanding that, this is a cartoon, this isn't real. That's kind of how I thought of it. It just felt like a fun medium to do something interesting, and create like a character, almost like a comic book or like a story.
Of the information that was leaked, how much of it was correct and how much of it was incorrect? Because you have come out to say that there are inaccuracies in some of the allegations. Obviously, the rumor mill's been spinning, but how much of it was spot on and how much of it was false information?
The biggest piece of false information was they tried to connect my late father to one of the companies I think he was a part of or something. But they connected it to this other guy named Bob Schultz, who I don't know who that guy is. And that's where they brought up this rumor that I'm Jewish and all this stuff. I mean, that's a common attack people use against online people, is you're Jewish. I really don't care that much, except for the fact that it's just not true. Mostly everything they found was pretty correct. I mean, I am Kenneth Schultz. I used to do my own like kind of personal account, which was Kenneth Stark. And people were asking why I used Stark last name. It was just, to keep it semi-anonymous. I use my real face and stuff all the time, so it was just, again, just like a character. I used to do like a Stark Report news stream that I would actually use my face and kind of talk about the news, sort of similar to Nick Fuentes. Yeah, the biggest piece was that they try to connect me to somebody who they claim is Jewish to try to build up this thing like I'm this Jewish psyop that's run by Mossad or something like that to trick people, which is just not true. I mean, I am German, French, and Italian. I've shown my DNA. The unfortunate thing is that it doesn't necessarily quite matter anymore because the rumor's already out there.
And another question I had is, obviously, now that you've been doxxed, your entire, life, I mean, I know quite a few things about you just by doing the research, was the SoundCloud, the Nick Fuentes AI stuff, Minecraft stuff, the January 6th stuff as well. Have you been seeing any real-life consequences to your actions? Because your name is out there now. Like, have you been suffering from any... anything like that happening to you in your personal life now?
No, not yet. I say yet because, who knows what could happen, but not really. I mean, my docs went out there, I think, a little bit more harder with more serious people when I was involved in the January 6th stuff, like I said before, is that, my face was out there, the FBI was looking for me, and it's not like I was hiding, but it took them a while to get through all the cases and stuff to find people eventually. And when they did find me, I turned myself in, essentially. My docs was out there on a personal level, and I didn't really have any repercussions in my normal life from that, even though I think there were way more serious people that were like they actually wanted to possibly attack me or something like that for being in January 6th. A lot more radical leftists, people who do like real activism and stuff like that were after me. And I was on Joe Rogan, not directly. Joe Rogan watched a clip where I was, going into the building, so my face was on the news, Channel 9 news or whatever, but, so I had kind of experienced the whole doxing thing before, and really nothing happened from that, so I don't quite think something will happen for this. I think it would be very strange for somebody to get that upset about anime cartoon character persona online to go and do something in the real world.
I guess that leads me on to another question I have, which is basically, so you're kind of at the position right now where obviously everyone who is, on the left and stuff is going to hate you. The right hate you as well. I've been looking in the comment section of your recent posts and stuff, and everyone's saying the jig is up, call it a day, move on, like you're done, basically. Do you think that there is a possibility that that Nachisu Miku will have a resurgence? Do you think you can rally or come back from this, or do you think rally is maybe a bit of a the wrong word to say, but do you think that there's a possibility that you can come back from this?
I do think so, and I do believe that. I still have fun with the character. I think the character might be a little different going forward. It might take some time for some of the people who felt catfished or betrayed by it to, forgive me and stuff like that, which I totally understand, but many of them have made it clear is that they didn't care that I was a man, they were more upset that I lied, which I totally understand, and some of those people may come back around eventually, but, now that it's all out there, I'm just gonna be truthful and honest about everything. There's really nothing left to lie about, so, yeah.
We wrapped up the interview shortly after this, and throughout the following few days, I continued to work on this video. It almost sounds satirical, but this is very much real. And now you know what happens when an SS YouTuber has their mask slip. Now you know the story of Nachisu Miku.